Hello and welcome to another video. So I told you guys I'd bring you a budget deck sooner or later, and here we have our first one. So this is a budget Portalcraft deck focusing on the artifact archetype. It does extremely well, I'm going to be honest with you. I had a great time running this deck. No issues with it at all, or fucking just not at all. And its expandability is super easy. You can very easily turn this deck into what is currently probably one of the more meta-focused artifact decks that I've seen around, running Orcust as a one of, which I mean, in general, already a really cheap deck. It's really just swapping in an Orcust, which is quite easy to do, if anyone who does have one. But overall, this artifact deck just has a lot of options and a lot of things you can do with it. It's mostly going, obviously, for all those big artifact players, being able to swarm the board with good removal cards and decent things that just are really hard to deal with most of the time. So you're taking great advantage of the fusion mechanic, being able to summon out your gears, getting to artifact A, B, and Y, in this case alpha, beta, and as I've been informed, gamma are the attribute, but that's okay. So B being the most important for beta, you're able to do 3 damage to enemy leader. This thing can win you games on its own. It's an extremely solid artifact, and even without going into Masterwork artifact, honestly, it's already just crazy. The only legendary you need is Ralmir. We're only running 3 of it for this variant. It does a perfect job of doing what it needs to do, summoning extra artifacts, getting you extra value, and proccing your board. And then running the 9 golds. So Miriam, double gear procs, awesome, really simple. Absolute does a great job when you can just summon more gears, get more artifacts out with the Evo. And the 2 Sylvia, which is just your basically choose effect mode, so you get to draw 2, restore 4 defense, but also has built-in Evo destruction, which is really nice. And then just 1 ancient cannon. 1 ancient cannon can be a bit rough if you don't find it, but if you do, it's a really good way to control your early game, especially going second. So we'll get right into the matches and take a look. So our first matchup is going to be up against Swordcraft. This deck actually did so well that by the time I got the matches for this footage, which was pretty straightforward to do, I've gone back from Ruby to Sapphire again, so really had a lot of success with this deck. So Swordcraft, not really doing anything turn 1, good for me, nice to see, it's what you want. We are going second, and we already have the Ancient Cannon, which puts us in a really nice position to turn 4. So we're kind of just going to be building up those gears, holding on to them, and trying to make sure we keep the Swordcraft's board clear. Well, they didn't go super wide super fast. They did eventually start playing cards, like you saw here, where they started proccing stuff. Luckily, we'd already got a setup going where I could pretty easily take out most of the board, just leaving up the 2-2 to deal with next turn. They just went for Ancient Crown, meaning I basically get a free turn to go for Cannon. We do need to free up some space, so fusing off artifacts here and getting the proc for the 2 damage is good value. I also throw the Evo on the Lovestruck Puppeteer. Lovestruck Puppeteer, giving you another puppet both on its fanfare and on Evo, is an insanely valuable card against early aggro decks, as it just lets you kind of swing and control the board. And when you do Evo it, 4 damage to the face, if it sticks, is really good. So they end up going for the Zirconia, while also having the Quickblader. We have to take a little bit of damage here, which kind of sucks, and then I need to find a way around this. Unfortunately, my only really good way around this is to sack the gold artifact I already created, in favor of getting the Gamma artifact instead of the Beta artifact, as the Gamma artifact will allow me to just wipe the board. And at the time I hadn't quite decided to go for that initially, so I already puppeted to kill the other one, but hey, what can you do? This is still really solid, but this game is quite a long one. This is definitely a game of attrition, and at any point I could have lost. From about turn 7 or 8 onwards, it gets really dicey here. So we have the Ralmir. Can't quite use it because we don't really have any artifacts here that are worth making. I end up just doing a quick fusion, trying to make what I can make, clear the board, stick some stuff where I can, get some healing to keep myself healthy because God knows what they're going to do next. Big damage plays are typically what Sword likes to see around turn 7. And we end up seeing Geno. Not actually a real big problem for us here, but it is a great way for them to clear our board. And we don't really have a great way to deal with it. So we do have Bullet from Beyond in the end. That top deck really saving us. Generating us extra gears, allowing us to take out the 2/2s. Unfortunately, I don't actually have a way to full clear this without fusing, and I didn't want to have to fuse here. Because I'm very close to having all 3 of them for the Ralmir play. And I didn't want to have to go for it unless I absolutely had to. And unfortunately, I didn't end up having the Ralmir play yet. So I ended up just going for it, going for double A to heal because I needed the extra healing. I'm still actually within range of lethal at this point, which is really dangerous. Because if they did have an Albert here, I would just die in the following turn. And now it's going to be really hard to get Masterwork. Fortunately, no Albert play, which was the saving grace here. Not having to worry about an Albert coming down to absolutely dice us up. And forcing out their Super Evolve. So now even if they did want to Albert me, they won't be able to lethal me easily. So we still have Doom right here, which is going to just allow us to do what we want to do here. We can Stream of Life this. We can go for the Miriam, get some more gears going. Hope for the 50-50 as well if we wanted with the gears. And I ended up just going for the guaranteed. Instead of hitting 4 to face, I ended up just guaranteeing that I'll clear this. Plus, we still get the double heal, so we're keeping ourselves healthy, trying to avoid those big swing turns Sword likes to do. These wards, though, really did make a little bit of a problem for me. I don't really have too many good ways to remove these at this point. I ended up just digging for cards instead. I end up finding a couple of options. Getting the final artifact that I needed for the Masterwork fusion. But that's about all I could do. So I risk just taking 11 damage here and dying again to literally anything that could breathe on me at that point. Fortunately, it didn't end up mattering. They didn't actually have anything, so that was a huge save. And we can freely go for our Masterwork here, wipe their board, heal up, and deal 10 damage. And with just 1 card in their hand, I'm really not under any threat by this 1/1. So they end up just with another small follower, and a Luminous Mage. Again, not really a problem. They can't clear this, and that's the main thing. If they had left the wards up, I would have had to find a way around them, which I end up finding pretty good solutions to that, so I wasn't too concerned. And hitting for 10 to win the game. Following on from that riveting sword gameplay, we end up against Abysscraft, another aggro-focused deck. We haven't had too many Abyss matches overall. I don't know if I featured any in the previous videos either, because there's just not that many Abyss players at the moment. At least there hasn't been the first 3 days. So we start off here with a pretty similar hand to last time. Being able to start with Ancient Cannon and going second is always nice. I think all 3 matches I'm going to show, I actually end up going second, but it doesn't really change a lot going first. It just kind of makes Ancient Cannon slower. Or Absoluta slower in those cases. So we really just need to control the board early against Abyss, try and stop them from getting any free damage. That's the last thing we want, is them just getting free procs until we can get that cannon down to start wiping things. I decided not to kill the 1-2 because summoning double skeletons would have hurt us next turn. Now, fortunately, we can go for cannon pretty freely here, and I think we actually have enough evos to full wipe their board. Well, enough fuses, sorry, to full wipe their board. And we end up doing it pretty handedly. So I end up making Gamma, which is the board clear one, because we're going up against something that likes to proc its board, so why not make something that will at least give us some advantage. I do make a minor misplay here. I actually end up just sending it, which isn't what I meant to do. I was meant to fuse first, but it's not an entirely big misplay because keeping the fusions for the cannon procs is also a pretty good play. But yeah, I definitely should have waited and went for their 3 damage to face there instead. Because it doesn't really make much difference now when I'm forced to fuse them. If I want to go for the Doomright. But fortunately, we draw our 1-drop here, and we just end up sending a few cards to board. We do 1 fusion just to limit our hand size, so that even if they kill our last word, we still don't overdraw ourselves. And we get pretty set up for our next turn. So I have a pretty easy time just fusing off. Getting our summon off. And I actually have a pretty free game to go face. So I end up just taking the 5 damage I have on board here. Go face with it, get 3 off the proc, and we wipe board. Leaving on just 12 health. Very nice spot for us to have him at here. We do need a few more gears though if we actually want to make Masterwork. Fortunately, it shouldn't be too difficult. But this Ceres is a little bit of a problem. The 4 heal is actually kind of brutal and not something I want to have to deal with. Fortunately for me, I end up finding at least a usable card here. And do fuse it off for the Masterwork creation. And then we go for the summon, which unfortunately doesn't quite get us there. So we end up just doing our first Super Evo, which does allow us to full clear, keep the Super Evo, get the damage on face that we kind of wanted, and force the board wipe. They do have to now push us pretty hard here, but they do play another Ceres. Ceres, the bane of my existence when I don't want them to heal. It's about the only healing blood typically has though, so I'm not too upset by that. So we just go for the Masterwork here, we send it with the Evo. It's 13 damage to face. If we get lucky and we find a generator for gears, we actually have the option to kill them in the next turn if they don't heal, which we've already seen double Ceres, so odds of them healing up much is pretty low. So the double beast, not great, not what I want to see. Unfortunately, Stream of Life isn't the gear card I needed, as it is on the slower side, but at least it does limit the amount of damage I am going to take in the following turn. So they go for the ward, not really a big deal. We're looking for literally any gear right now. Any card that can give us a gear will win the game. And there it is, Runica. Gives us exactly the 2 gears we want. We go for the fuses. All we have to do is make a beta, and that'll do 3 damage to face and win us the game. Alright, and the final match here for this video is up against Forest. Another class that we don't see too often, but I feel like we will start seeing more as we go on. We start with not a great opener, but we do end up mulliganing for a much better opener. Getting our 1-drops, a 2-drop, kind of works out. Even if they are on the slower side. So we get our 1-drop to board, they commit a fairy, because fairies come with a rush. Unfortunately, our only turn 2 play is Ironheart. It's not awful, but it's not great. Unfortunately, no cannon this time, at least not so far. But being a one-of, seeing it in your opening is more rare. I just got kind of lucky those first 2 games to find it early. Fortunately, we do find one of our Lovestruck Puppeteers, which I feel like is a pretty good card going into Forest. It just forces them into having to eat these. And we actually have a pretty nice setup here now, all things considered. We can easily drop the Miriam, generating us more gears. We can fuse off the gears to get ready for the Doomright. We have the Puppet, which allows us to hit the 1-1, and we get to Lovestruck, which we can Evo, get another Puppet, and hit for 4. Actually a combination I like doing quite a bit. Now, I could have went for more gears, and the correct play was probably to go for more gears there. But I didn't want to give up the free damage against Forestcraft. Plus, making a 4-4 and a 2-3 is just much more difficult for them to remove. Force them to commit way more resources. than opposed to a 4/5 and a 2/2. Honestly. Although in that case, with what they played to get rid of it, they would have committed the same amount.
Follow me.
So we end up going for the ward one here. Just trading off. Getting 3 damage to face. Didn't really probably need to use the puppet. Kind of just used it because I could. So we have another Doom right here, which could be quite nice, but I think I would prefer for the bullet to go off, get us the extra gears, especially now that we've drawn Ralmia, which becomes active next turn. So I end up just making another beta. I decide that we're just going to go face here. They're on 13 health. Ralmia can come out next turn, which will allow us to pretty easily secure the 7 damage. 1 for the super evolve and 2 from and 6 more from the artifact betas. And then Doomright will actually secure us game in the following turn. I set up a 2-turn lethal from hand was the plan. Now, I couldn't quite do what I wanted to do because I had to deal with that 7/7, but it works out the exact same way. We just end up leaving up all the fairies by evolving one of the betas instead of the Ralmia. Since Ralmia wouldn't have been able to take out the 7/7 on its own. They end up getting, I think, a full clear here. Yeah. But since they had to commit so much to removing that, they didn't get to heal or put up any wards. Wards wouldn't really matter, to be fair, but Doomright does just secure us a victory here, summoning both beta artifacts, allowing us to get 6 damage on board.
Wasn't I?
So overall, this deck is an extremely solid choice, especially if you are a beginner. It does have a little bit of more complicated mechanics as far as fusing artifacts go. It's not just slap theft to board and hit face. You do have to think a little bit about how you're going to play things and when you're going to play things. But it is a good opportunity to learn all of those kind of mechanics, especially early on before they get too much more complex. And then obviously Ralmia being a cheap legendary, just 1 in the deck. We only need 3 of it. And then 9 gold total cards. 3 Miriam, 3 Absolute, 1 Cannon, and 2 Sylvia. And Sylvia can honestly probably be subbed out for a couple other cards if you really needed to. You could get away without running double Sylvia, I'm going to be honest with you. Because Sylvia is just kind of a draw, heal, removal. Like, it is an extremely good card, do not get me wrong. And I would run it if you have it. But it's not 100% a necessary card to run this deck. Not like kind of the rest of it is, where you want to be able to do a lot more with them. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. You'll find the deck list in the description below, and until next time guys, I'll see you then.